But I know Lazar is looking down on us, and he will be with us forever, and I know that he's definitely not going to be forgotten. He's touched so many lives, and we've just been very fortunate that he was among us, and you know, he was just such a special person.
And I don't think there was a dry eye in the arena.
Yeah, I'm watching the rise, and I wouldn't say I'm shocked, cause I'm hardly surprised. This one's for the ride, this one's for who knew I'd make it, just needed some time. This one's for my wife, could've left 1,000 times just so by my side. This one's for the grind, I knew it would happen, just had the strength in my mind. To the videos, they thought I was a black guy. That's hard to get over. A foreigner in the sport, but I'm fully devoted. I don't take it for granted that the door's been open. I knew I was different, I knew I was chosen. A breadwinner, but I'm soft-spoken. Authentic like a 5950, and there's no cap. Let's have a toast to that. Let's have a toast for the real ones.
Walking into Dickies Arena here for the final day of competition. We are starting out with the women. We have what event is this? I'm trying to count. We have event 7. It is running, toes to bar, and dumbbell snatches, heavy. We're gonna get in there.
I've been to myself, just me lately. I don't need a lot, no. Just me and the fam, few friends ain't playing, I don't speak a lot. And I can't stop, and I can't stop, and I can't stop, and I can't stop. I'm that cash money getter, big show stopper, 4 kids having, no chain rocker. Make my business, work my business, count them digits, earn them winnings.
This is my 3rd time recording this. I had a little bit of an audio issue, but it is all fixed now. So let's take a look at the women's leaderboard after the Dixies triplet. So in first, we have our champion. Yes, I'm going to call it right now. I don't think we can yet. There's statistically and mathematically, there is a shot of someone beating her, especially with 2 scored events for the final event. But I wouldn't count on it. First place, currently, we have tia-clair Toomey. She took another first in the Dixies triplet. But Gabby Magala really only surrendered the least amount of points she had to, finishing in 2nd overall in that event, and really pushing Tia the whole time, staying within a realm to catch her. So Gabby looked really good for what she could do, but Tia's in a league of her own, and that's still true. Where the race is, I think, is going to be for this 3rd place position, and Emily Rolfe has maintained that through this event, and she finished 4th, only letting Haley, who was at the time 6th, but now in the 5th, but now in the 4th place position, only letting Haley pick up 1 spot on her because Haley finished 3rd in that event and Emily finished 4th. Emily is still ahead of Haley by more than 30 points, but with 2 scored events and 200 points up for grabs, there is a shot for Haley to get on the podium, and the 5th place athlete, Bethany Flores. Those are really the only ones who I think have a shot at the podium. There is a big drop between Bethany Flores in 5th and Amy Kringle in 6th, 592 points to 514 points. So I think it's going to be really, really hard for anyone below Bethany to have a shot at the podium. But Emily Rolfe, who is currently on the podium, Haley Adams, and Bethany Flores with 2 scores events, I really believe all 3 are within the shooting range of that 3rd place position. So that'll be a fun battle to watch in the final event. Amy Kringle is about 80 points back of Bethany Flores, so I just don't think that's very likely, but they're kind of in a different bracket of points. But right below Amy Kringle in 7th is Brooke Wells. 1 point behind her in 8th is Lexis Raptis, who has made her way back into the top 10. Danielle Brandon as well has joined them in the top 10. And then Paige Semenza rounds that out. 11th is Alex Gazan, and these last 200 points are really going to be an opportunity for her to fight to get back in that top 10 at the end of the weekend. Maddie Sturt in 12th, Grace Walton in 13th. Abigail Domet in 14th, and then Emma Lawson rounding out our top 15 in the top half of our athletes, who I think all have a shot of, if they do really, really well on these last 2 events, possibly making it into the top 10. So those are the athletes that I would keep my eye on. Now let's move over to the men's, where I think we have a little bit more of a race for the podium. Brent Fikowski, I would say, has separated himself a little bit. He is more than 40 points ahead of James Sprague. He finished 3rd in the Dickies triplet, so I think that he is in a good shot to win his first championship in a really, really interesting year, and I'll talk more about that if he does and what I think about him as our men's champion, but that hasn't happened yet. Don't want to jinx it. So we've got Brent sitting in a pretty good position to possibly get his first championship. James Sprague is sitting in a good position to get on the podium, but it's not as good as it may seem. So the points are really, really tight between 2nd and 5th. I think any of those 4 men, 2 of them, any combination of 2 are going to end up on the podium. So James Sprague has 634, Jason Hopper is at 626, Dallin Pepper 13 points back at 613, and Patrick Vellner at 606. 200 points up for grabs. A lot of shifting can happen in that 2 through 5. Now 6th is Jay Crouch, and he is 56 points back of Patrick Vellner, so I don't think he's going to be able to do enough to get into a podium position unless all 4 of those men have a bad event. But to be honest, this is a shorter person's event just by body mechanics. It's a lot of squatting and then pull-ups and bar muscle-ups, which is like shorter arms would help you cycle those a little bit faster. And James, Jason, Dallin, and Patrick are all, Patrick less so, but Patrick got long arms. But James, Jason, and Dallin are all very tall. Pat is a little bit more average. He's on the taller side, but not super tall. But he's got long arms. That definitely doesn't help him on the pull-ups and the bar muscle-ups. Roman Krennikov absolutely had the worst case scenario happen in his Dickies triplet. He finished 27th, which is nearly last. He looked so far behind in that group of men in the top heat. He was in 3rd position going into this event, and he just plummeted down the leaderboard to 7th. And 7th is not a bad position, but when you're an athlete who's made on the podium multiple years in a row and was sitting in a podium position prior to this event, 7th is not great. He surrendered a ton of points, and I think it'd be really difficult for him to get back into the podium position. He'd have to win the last 2 events, essentially, or come close to it, and I don't see it happening. So I think Roman, that last event, really did him in for sure. Well, not for sure, but very, very possibly. In my educated opinion, I think it did him in. We'll find out, though. Justin Medeiros has got himself into 8th, so he moved up just a little bit. Ricky Garrard is in 9th, and Samuel Quant rounds out your top 10. Travis Mayer is in 11th. Saxon Panchek is your 12th position. And Yella Hosta, who was doing really, really well, he struggled a little bit with the dumbbell on this last event. He was sort of lowering it to his shoulder each time versus just like bringing it down as we usually do with dumbbell snatches. 100 pounds is heavy, and it definitely showed. Yella started really fast, and the first run did great, and then sort of faded to the back of the pack, and he ended up finishing 23rd in the Dickies triplet. So Yella will have an opportunity to see if he can punch himself back into the top 10, but it will be difficult because Ricky Garrard has 529. He's 9th, not 10th. 487 is Samuel Quantin, 10th, but Yella only has 461. So he would need not quite 100 points, but quite a bit of points just to even get into like a safe top 10 position. So the top 10 might look like what it looks now, but that race to that podium is going to be pretty exciting here on the men's side. I would say that rounds out the men that we're really looking at as, real contenders in this CrossFit Games. We have one more event to go to, but it's 2 scored events left of the CrossFit Games, and that'll round out 2024. It's always sad when the CrossFit Games ends, and this one has definitely been an interesting one. So a lot more to say, I think, later, but let's get to that final event.
This the anthem. If you rockin' with it, put your hands up. Yeah. This the anthem. If you get up and get it, put your hands up. Yeah. This one for the winners if you with me. Yeah. Hands up in the sky if you feel me. Yeah. This one for the winners if you with me. Yeah. Hands up in the sky if you feel me. Yeah. It's the anthem. If I give you my word, that's what I stand on. Loyalty and trust is what I stand on. Family and love is what I stand on. Talking big, big. I knew that one day that I could make it big, big. I'm talking how to stay smoking without a sissy. Now we get up and do it like we got a big rig. It's getting serious. I know you're curious. Took some losses through the process, had me furious. But I got eyes on me, vision, keep it.
I don't know who just won. I think there's a chance Sprague may have just beat Ðukić, and he looks a little defeated on the floor right now. So we'll see. Who do you think won? That was by far the saddest closing ceremony I've ever been a part of. There was a really great video that CrossFit put together about Lazar, and I don't think there was a dry eye in the arena. I think everyone was crying. I will wrap up the results of the games, but I think I'm gonna wait a few minutes. It'll be seconds for all of you, but a few minutes before I do that. It was very somber, reflective, very different than any other closing ceremony. I've been to like probably 5 or 6 of them, and usually there's excitement, champagne, all of that stuff. Wouldn't have been fitting this year. And I think everyone needed that moment to come together and cry together and mourn together and make sure everyone knew that Lazar was not forgotten throughout the excitement of the end of the competition. And with that, the 2024 CrossFit Games season has come to a close. This season certainly ended differently than we expected in a lot of ways. In one way, it ended exactly how most of us expected, though. And we're going to talk about the leaderboard a little bit. So, in first, on the women's side, we're going to do the women first, is tia-clair Toomey, winning her 7th CrossFit Games, which is insane, after coming back from a baby. It's really impressive. I don't think that any of the people that dropped out would have made too much of a difference. I know some people thought Laura had a good chance. I mean, Laura definitely had a chance, but I do think that Tia showed her dominance this weekend, and I do think that she would have won regardless. We'll never know what would have happened this year. Maybe next year Tia will compete again. Maybe Laura will compete again, and maybe we'll get that battle. Didn't happen this year, but Tia definitely looked like the fittest one out there. But nothing really changed much after that first event on the women's side. On the men's side, changes, lots of changes. But on the women's side, the top 5 were the same top 5 that came into the event. So Tia came in first, Gabby Magala came in second, and she was 151 points behind Tia. Gabby did not do great on those final 2 events. She got a 10th and a 15th. I was a little bit worried, but Emily Rolfe, who ended up being in 3rd place, didn't do extraordinarily well in either of those events either. She had an 11th and a 9th, so it didn't seem like it was going to be enough to overtake her for second, and it was not. When everything settled, it ended up being very much the same as it was prior. I believe Haley Adams may have came in 4th. Maybe Haley and Bethany flipped, but they have the same points. So even if they did flip, they actually are tied points-wise. It would have came down to who had the better finish of the 2, and that tiebreaker ended up going to Bethany. I'm gonna try to see if I can pull up. Yes. So before the event, Haley was in 2nd, Bethany was in 5th. Those 2 just flip-flopped. Bethany ended up finishing 4th. Haley ended up finishing 5th. Really great for both of those athletes. There's a lot of athletes here that we should be celebrating. They did really awesome. Unfortunately, I do think that some people will put an asterisk next to this event because of the circumstances surrounding it. But while it was best for some athletes to pull out, it was best for some athletes to still compete. And to be able to compete while going through what they were going through shows a certain amount of strength and resilience. And also knowing your limits and knowing you can't compete shows that too, shows a different type of strength. So I don't think we should look down at the athletes who competed. I don't think we can look down on the athletes that chose not to compete. But ultimately, we can only measure the athletes against the ones that showed up and did the competition. So I will say there's really some awesome performances by some unexpected people here. Gabby Magala, I mean, everyone was talking about her being top 10, but to be on the podium is amazing. Emily Rolfe, no one was talking about Emily Rolfe making a podium run. So very, very impressive among lots of competitive women being in the field. Bethany Flores, there's always a lot of questions there with her back injury that she's had, and to come in 4th, I mean, really awesome for her. And Haley Adams coming off taking a year off and trying to fall in love with CrossFit again, and then to come back. And when we talk about the Lazar situation, losing Lazar, Haley knew Lazar. Everyone had a different amount of a relationship with him, but Haley knew him well from training with him at Mayhem. They trained together in the 2022 season. She saw him probably in the gym most days. So she definitely had a relationship with him and came back after having some struggles and taking time for herself and her mental health, and then to come back strong enough to still compete after something so tragic happened. I mean, really awesome and proud of Haley. I don't know Haley that well. I've probably only seen her in passing, but really like incredible comeback from Haley. I don't know if she doesn't want to call it a comeback, and I get that. But just an awesome performance all around. Really, really impressed with Haley. Alexis Raptis too, she was struggling a little bit near the beginning of the weekend. She had a 14th and a 26th and a 19th and a 15th. And then she climbed her way back, having her best finishes near the end of the weekend. Starting with push-pull with a 2nd, Dickey's triplet, a 5th. The first final event, she got a 1st, and the second final event, she got a 2nd, only to Tia. She beat Tia in that one event, so really awesome to see Alexis battle her way back too. Danielle Brandon finishing in the top 10 and 7th. Maddie Sturt having an incredible year, coming in 8th. Paige Semenza, I was talking to someone from her camp and they were saying that like she's never been in the top heat before and she was in it for most of this weekend. So awesome performance from her. And Alex Kazan, who I think we all thought was going to end up on the podium, ended up being in 10th. But I did hear that she really did struggle with the loss of Lazar. And like I said, everyone had different levels of struggle. And I heard that she was, from some people that spoke with her, I didn't speak with her, but some people that spoke with her and the media teams told me that she was really struggling. And she still ended up with a top 10 finish. And I think that's something that she should be proud of, even if the expectations were higher. The situation changed, the circumstances changed, and she still did really well. Brooke Wells ended up in 11th. Claudia Gluck ended up in 12th. She had some great finishes on the final day, 4th and a 3rd in the last 2 events. So awesome from Claudia, a rookie. Be interesting to see how she comes back. Amy Kringle was doing really great. She ended up falling to 13th. She struggled on those last 2 events, but was in the top 10 for most of the weekend. So great first showing for Amy Kringle. Grace Walton, also a rookie, did really well. Abigail Domet ended up in 15th. Emma Lawson in 16th. So a lot of athletes did really well that we didn't necessarily expect to do as well as they did. And yeah, lots of congratulations go out to Tia for coming back and winning her 7th as a mom. And in these circumstances, Gabby for finally making the podium. Emily Rolfe for like surprising everybody. Awesome there. Let's go over to the men's side because that was crazy. Those final 2 events were crazy. I was sitting there and you probably just saw that, but I was like, oh my gosh. As someone who's been in the sport for a really long time, I was very hopeful for Brent. I've watched Brent for years. I interviewed him at the CrossFit announcement for the open workout 24.1. I've talked to him at lots of different things and was very excited for him to finally win a CrossFit Games. It did not happen. And I was sitting next to Scott from Clydesdale Media right before the event started, and I said, Scott, I'm a little nervous. Fikowski has a history of underperforming in the final event. And then he did it. Underperformed in the final event. And I was really sad about it. I thought it would be I thought Brent would be a great voice for this year under these circumstances. He's part of the Athletes Association, big voice there, and he will be that still. I just was very excited for him and a little bit disappointed that he did what I thought he might do. He got an 11th and then a 20th in the final 2 events. He went from 1st to 3rd, which was, but glad he still made it on the podium, but he was like 40 points out from 1st. He was actually 41 points out from 1st, and he was 41 points ahead prior to this event, I believe. So big shifts for Brent. I have no idea. He knew Lazar very well because they were both part of the Fitness Athletes Association, and that was hard for him all weekend. You could see he was really affected by that. And then to just miss out on winning the games must be a tough weekend for Brent. But Brent's in 3rd. Let's talk about 1st and 2nd because those athletes definitely deserve some love. James Sprague finishing in 1st, his 2nd year at the CrossFit Games. Just a really incredible performance from him too. An athlete that has a long future, I think, in the sport. I think my camera's gonna die. 1 second. Okay, I've switched over to my phone because my battery died on my camera. and I want to get this video out to you as soon as possible. So we were talking about James Sprague. He was a teen athlete coming up from the teens, finally making the individuals last year. He was a demo team athlete the year before that, rookie year last year, probably the most improved this year. They did not do those types of awards this time at the CrossFit Games. They did a tribute to Lazar, which I'm sure you just saw. Really young athlete who plans to be in the sport for a long time. Very impressed to see him win. I didn't think he would be able to do it quite yet. Definitely thought he had potential, but did not think he would do it this year. And he did well throughout the weekend. If you look at his finishes, like, he has a lot of 7th, 4th, 1st, 2nd, 5th, 4th. He has a 21st in the clean ladder. I mean, he's not known as a strong athlete. And then a 17th in push-pull. But other than those two, he's had really, really great finishes throughout the weekend. And ultimately won by 21 points over the second place athlete, who's also super young. This is likely, could be, a changing of the guard in the men's field. So we got James Sprague, who was like 23 years old, I believe. Then Dallin Pepper, who's also in his early 20s. He did great in those last two events. Jason Hopper, his good friend, was in third going into the final two events. And Dallin did so well at both of them, a 2nd and a 7th. And I'm like, Dallin may be knocking his friend off the podium for that 3rd place position. But he actually got 2nd. He really, really knocked him off. Jason finished 4th in a tie for points with Pat Vellner, but won the tiebreaker with a 1st place finish Jason Hopper had in the Ðukić triplet this morning. So that's what put him over. Patrick. I would have liked to see Patrick get on the podium too, and he just came up a little bit short there too in that 5th place position. There was a lot of shifting on the men's side in that last event. It was super exciting to watch, but the impact of the tragic loss of Lazar definitely was felt throughout this entire event, especially on the men's side. The women and the men don't interact a whole ton from what I've been told at events like this. They're in different places, they're competing at different times, warming up at different times. But these men, especially near the top, would have all had many interactions with Lazar. Last year at the games, previous years at the games. So these are the people that really, a lot of them really felt it. And definitely some on the women's side, and of course on the team side as well. But the men's, you could definitely feel something specific on the men's side, a specific sense of loss. Let's just finish up the top couple athletes. Samuel Quant was in 6th. Ricky Garrard came in 7th. I heard he might be battling with like possibly a twisted ankle. He fell on the Chad event. So Ricky had a little bit of adversity, but I mean, top 10 is still great. Justin Medeiros finishing 8th. Roman Krennikov, I don't think he was very happy with this finish. He didn't look happy. Finished in 9th. Really, the end of today, just all of today, really, really killed Roman. Today he had a 27th, a 22nd, and a 19th. Basically all of his worst events came on the 3rd day. So I imagine rough day for Roman. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, Austin Hatfield had a pretty good day. He won both of the final events and got an 8th place in the Ðukić triplet. So Austin Hatfield came into Saturday essentially in last or close to last, like 2nd to last or something, and ended up in a top 10 position. Huge, crazy. Saxon Panchik ended up being 11th. Jay Crouch withdrew for the final events. That was it. And he finished 12th. Travis Mayer was 13th. 14th was Hendrik Kapalainen. And then Jelle Hosta finished 15th. He struggled today as well with a 23rd, a 14th, and a 23rd, pushing him out of that top 10 quite a bit. BKG was 16th. And those are really the big names. Cole Sager ended up finishing in 24th. But a lot of athletes that compete through the weekend. because of the circumstances. We only cut to 30. And the closing ceremony was different. I have been to many closing ceremonies, and usually they're a celebration, there's lots of cheering, there's people spraying champagne. There was a tribute, a big tribute to Lazar. And Peak 360 gave their medals and put them on his pylon. Lots of people came up and kissed his pylon. Athletes all came in, they dropped flowers, white flowers at that pylon, brought t-shirts, tapped it, kissed it. It was very emotional. They showed a video. I checked right before I recorded this, and I don't see it on the CrossFit YouTube just yet, but I hope it gets put up there. It was emotional. There wasn't a dry eye in Dickies Arena. It was sad, heartbreaking, but also beautiful. And I'm glad we could all be together during that moment and experience that video together. But I also hope they put it online so that even more people get to experience it, because it showed a lot of his beautiful spirit. So I really hope that everyone gets to see that too. It had a different tone. This game's had a different tone. And there's an investigation into Lazar's death. A lot more will come out about that in time. There's an independent investigation being done by CrossFit, but there's also a police investigation. So there's a lot. There's a lot that CrossFit's got to deal with. There's a lot that Lazar's family and Luca are going to have to deal with. And there's still more mourning the community needs to do. But on a higher note to end this, there were some incredible performances by athletes this weekend. The ones that chose to go, respect them for mourning the way they needed to mourn and stepping away. I have all the respect for that. But I also have all the respect for the athletes that decided to stay. And having this event this weekend kept Lazar in our minds all weekend. And I believe that there are some people that, if the CrossFit Games weren't happening, would not have been thinking about Lazar as much. If the CrossFit Games was canceled and everyone went home and there were no CrossFit Games videos and photos coming across people's YouTube and Instagram feeds, I think there's a lot more people who wouldn't have been thinking about Lazar all weekend. But now everyone got to think about him and hear about how he impacted people. And people got to still perform their craft of being a competitive CrossFit athlete in his memory, in his name, and kept his name alive, talked about all weekend. Kept people donating to the GoFundMe, which I'll link again in the description of this video. So I think that having the CrossFit Games and talking about him every single day definitely gave us an opportunity to remember him, to think about him more than I think some people would have if we didn't have this event. So I hope some people look at it that way, and we all got to watch I got to watch all those athletes and show you the video of them paying their respects to him. And we got to do that as a community, and you all got to be a part of that too by watching this video. And I think that's special. It's tragic what happened. Horrible. But it's special that we got to come together instead of turning our separate ways after. I appreciate all of you for watching this video, for spending this time with me this weekend. More content to come as always. Appreciate all of you. And I hope you all stick around for more videos the rest of the year. 2024 season is certainly one we'll never forget. See you in the next one. And I appreciate all of you. Oh, and you know what? One more thing. Con Porter talked about this. His team won the team division. We haven't really talked a lot about that. Maybe I'll bring that up in another video. But he said to tell people that you love them. And I really love all of you for sticking around with me, for being here, for supporting me, for giving me the opportunity to be here. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all of you. And for watching my videos and being just like an awesome community that has been so special to me. So, thank you. Love you all. And I'll see you soon.